Welcome to Sage Advice, Conversations in Construction with Dustin Stephens, a conversation series that examines some of the unique challenges and groundbreaking innovations in the world of construction and real estate. In this episode, our panel discusses how to handle the challenges of implementing new systems and the essential traits that leaders must have in order to lead into the future. Let's drop in.
To anybody who's running a family business, do you have any nuggets of wisdom that you would suggest, and like how do you get around that dynamic? Because it is a family, it might not be as easy to maybe fire them or reprimand, or maybe it is easy.
Patience. You got to have patience. I mean, I've had my wife work for me, and that was bad, really. I mean, overall, we try. It's healthy to have some separation there, but the trust part, for instance, my sister, she runs my payroll division, and the trust level that you have with somebody in your family, you hope that that's what you bring to the table. And so, but it just, inherently you expect more out of them, and that's maybe not a good thing or a fair thing, but it is what it is. And I have to go over this with them at the office because you're harder on me than you are on them. Well, you're my sister. I expect more out of you. That's just the way it is. And so, it's difficult, but it's just very rewarding. And most of the time it works out fine. It's just you've got to, as the owner, I think you really got to have the patience to work with them and understand. It doesn't matter if it's even them or anybody. Nobody's going to do it the way you do it. That's one thing you got to get over. You got to get over yourself, right?
Yep.
And as I tell a lot of our managers, you got to sit there and you got to let people fail in order for them to be able to succeed. You got to see it, let them experience it, and then it's a teachable moment. You can show them what to do. So that's kind of how we apply that.
And is there and I'm assuming not everybody, the company is part of the family, but
no.
So do you feel like, hey, well,
people.
You have to set that standard because.
Well, and it's them looking like, okay, is this nepotism or, are you just getting a job because you're family members? And I'm very conscious of that. And as I said, you do your job or you won't be here. It doesn't matter if you're attached to me. I'm pretty adamant about that. And I've done things to show that I've had to get rid of family. So, that's not easy either. But that's what you got to do. You got to lay the basics down. And so it works good.
Well, from my perspective, it makes me work probably 10 times harder knowing that, the pressure is there.
Sure.
I think I feel like I have to deliver results that go beyond my dad's expectations, beyond what my grandpa would have expected, which is, pretty high. And so, that pressure's there, but also, my dad's uncle was involved in the business. My grandma worked the books forever. My, sister and my uncle currently are involved. And so my dad likes to tell the story. Well, I had to fire my own mom. And I think it was more of a
holidays.
Yeah, I think it was more of a forced retirement thing. But so it gives you that. There's like an extra engine there almost. It helps you go beyond, because I don't want to be perceived in the company as somebody who's just naturally going to take over because of the family name. I want to prove it to my team that, hey, I'm in here every day with you. I'm in here improving our systems, improving our processes to make your life easier. And I think that respect level has gone up when you're really down into it and saying, hey, I'm trying to make our entire company operate so that our work-life balance is crazy insane.
Exactly.
And then I know you said that you're generational or agnostic, and we're all human. I think if you've got a culture there of winning, maybe it's not necessarily get over that fear of adopting or change or new technology, but are there certain things that you wanted to put in place faster than that your father wants, and like how is that? How does he tell you, no, we got to go slow versus, or maybe you win and say, no, this is what we need to do to be successful?
Probably, well, probably the most memorable thing is when we implemented our new service desk system. So how customers actually log their issues and things like that with us. And we started that back in 2019. And I bet it took 3 years to really get like to where it needed to be. And I remember when I started that project, I said, this is going to be easy. This is a no-brainer, and instantly realized that, hey, it's going to require me to implement what I believe is the best, sort of best foot forward, but then really get the team involved and say, okay, here's what we've got. I've done sort of the back end so that you guys don't have to think about that, but which ways could we improve this? How can we automate that? That came from everybody. And so that there was a lot of seasoned people who brought their perspective on handling cases and handling issues with customers over the years, that system would not be what it is today without it.
So you brought the team in to make the...
Yeah, and I think that's the key, is just you got to bring people in to, I'm not a huge fan of starting out with a committee of 20, because you're probably never going to get it off the ground. But if you start with 1 or 2 people to build something out, and then you bring the team in and say, okay, here's the baseline, now let's take it to the next level, they're always going to deliver.
You, Joe, is there your kids or maybe that different generation will come in and ask you for new technology, or maybe you're the one who's on that bleeding edge or trying to implement technology?
They're usually trying to.
They're ready.
They're usually trying to stay up with me on that part. My daughter, she handles a lot of our communications and our website stuff and doing things for shows like this. And she's very innovative and really creative in what she does. And again, my son is on the legal side of things, and so he's trying to cover all the things that I tear up and stay behind me and keep me in good shape. So I'm out trying to look at the new software type things that are implemented, and that's kind of how it's worked. And we seem to work well together doing that.
So if you're out on the hunt for new technology that's going to improve efficiencies or take your company to new heights, do you have how do you go about that research?
Well, it's evolved over time. Obviously, one thing is I look at our budget, and I'm blown away every year what I spend on software. And I'm always trying to figure out where can I cut something here, and is it needed? And so, and then some of it boils down to we have software set up for everyone as a whole, but then it's segmented to certain groups also. And I'm trying to make it to where, for instance, we typically have 50 to 60 jobs going on across the country. And that means I have 50 to 60 superintendents out in the field. Well, they use our software. And for them, I want them working on the job. I don't want them having to deal with difficulty in navigating the iPad or their phone and 2 or 3 or 4 different apps. So the last couple of years, we've been trying to take everything we've got that's field-oriented and bring that down under 1 or 2 maybe apps that they deal with on a day-to-day basis and make their life easier. And so that's what's driven that look. And so, we've looked through Intact, because that involves payroll type things, expenses, those things. And payroll, wasn't an option with Intact at the beginning, but they've given us some third-party people to work with, and it's working out really well. And so I look at it from that perspective. And then the rest of it probably boils down to, is it enhancing our overall experience sometimes with the customer? Because we're able to share certain things with software nowadays where customers want to have a camera on a job. They want to see the pictures. They want to see all the daily things going on. And so you've got to be able to introduce that type of stuff. And so, I try to eliminate so much software, but there's a base that I got to have, and it's who's the best. Yeah. And then once you get locked in, I do a lot of Procore work and Intact. And so I'm really trying to help both of them see from my perspective what they can do to help us and help everybody else. And so they've been good about that. Well, Intact has been. Procore is a little more difficult, but Intact's been well to work with. So
yeah, and they're a very strategic partner of ours. I know our product team and their product team are working together daily. How do they improve the integration? So that experience for you and your customers can only improve. But yeah, we see the same thing. Like, I've heard the term Appageddon. Like just like how many different apps do I need to go into to log my time?
That's a challenge. That's a challenge.
But you kind of hit the nail on the head though too with thinking about user experience. I think that's a huge thing for me. When we're evaluating technology for our business, I always think about, is this going to improve my employees' lives? Is it going to improve our customers' lives? And if the answer is yes, I'm going to go down that rabbit hole further and likely come out with, a new piece of tech or something like that. But I think it's just always a part of the process of wanting to make it better. How are we going to be in business for the next 40 years? I think that's part of more of the decision making too, is from that higher level of, how do we change our model of how we do business? We did away with hourly rates and project fees and things like that. How do we give away as much knowledge for free? I mean, all these things have really shifted the way that we do business. And I think will benefit us for the next 40 years. And that's kind of where our mindset is at right now anyway.
Do you have any stories as you've implemented change in your company, technology specifically, maybe that you just say, hey, it is what it is. This is the stuff we're going to do. Get with the program, or do you take do you have any stories of where or maybe you thought this person wasn't going to adopt it, or you were wrong and who you thought would adopt new technology versus? Do you have any stories you could share with us?
For sure. Well, when we first started, it was probably 2017 when I was sort of brought in and sort of the discussions were starting to happen. And, the team that we had at the time were tenured employees. I mean, they've been with us for 10, 15, 20, 30 years in some cases. Well, I'm probably not quite 30 back then, but, and I think we just assumed that, hey, everybody's going to be on board with Kurt's vision, my dad, because he's a brilliant speaker. He knows what he wants at the end of the day, and he's able to communicate that to people. And unfortunately, the reality is that we had a lot of people that were shaking their heads yes, but in their hearts they were saying no. and they had made such a great contribution to the team, to the company over the years, but the reality was they didn't get it, they didn't want it, they didn't have the capacity to do it in some form. And so I think probably the biggest surprise for us and the biggest headache was the amount of turnover we had. And I think if anybody's, hasn't done a fundamental technology shift for, a decade, 2 decades, something like that, it's definitely something I prepare people for is, hey, you gotta expect for some people just to not be on board with this. They want to continue doing things the way that they're doing it. There's no harm, no foul. They know how to do that kind of stuff. And you got to let that process play out.
And how about your journey? You've implemented Intech successfully. It looks like you're doing some time capture in the field with your people. You're using Procore for your project management. Other technologies. How was that journey for your colleagues? Was everybody embraced it easily, or did you have any people?
For the most part, I think it was pretty seamless because we had other things that were playing. We were doing many different software pieces, and so everybody got something that they were using, and it was all disjointed. It was terribly disjointed, and you bring that all funneled together in the middle, and we're like, oh my God, how do you decipher that data? And so then it just slowly evolved to where we got to pull this together and get somebody that's doing more of it, that's working, and pulling it in. I think the biggest challenge what we've had to this day, outside of those, has been the estimating piece we've got. And we've never really successfully either felt like we found a software that would integrate and do what we wanted, and then based on maybe cost, whatever, and we're still using Excel. and it was interesting because this morning at another meeting, almost everybody in the room was in the same position. And it's Excel is great, but I'd love to replace it. And that's one where I'm getting pushed back, and they're driving the show, my team. As I bring up the idea, I want to do something else. No. We need to stay with this. I'm like, so that's the next battle down the road for me. But that's been hard. It's been hard to conquer from the standpoint of how it on the front end works. And, and Excel's obviously, everybody knows Excel. It's a great tool, but it ends at a certain point that I don't like, that I can't see and do what I want to.
All right. Well, this has been great. We could obviously continue this for hours, but we've got to wrap it up. So I just want to ask each of you one final question. And the question is, what's one essential that leaders must have to build credibility today and into the future?
I think it comes back to people. I think you got to have the right people in the right seats. And if you have the right people in the right seats, you put the right people in the right seats, you're gonna gain credibility for your throughout your own team, because there's a lot of disruption that happens when you've got 2 or 3 people on your team that aren't pulling their weight or don't believe in the mission or what have you. So, for me, the best advice is to focus on your people, and in some cases, they just need some extra mentoring. They need, a little bit more direction, a little more hands-on, a little more hands-off in some cases. So I think you've got to really understand and know your people and how they work, because the company's nothing without the people you got on board.
We're talking about tech, but being human, I mean, that's as old as time. Be human to people.
I'd love for technology to solve all the world's problems, but I mean, you gotta have people who drive that innovation forward. So,
man, how about yourself, Joe?
Well, credibility and the word contractor never seem to go together very well. As I said, we're just a notch above a used car salesman sometimes. For what we do, I've been in it so long, and I have people still calling me from the first couple of years I was in business. So longevity and trustworthiness for us has been huge, and that's done through relationships, through the customer, our own staff, whoever that is. When you build a relationship, it's like anything. You build a relationship, and it's long-lasting or it's short, and it depends on you, the person, a lot of other factors to it. But that's what I've seen, I guess, that makes it to give me some credibility over the course of time.
Well, and I know you were joking, and I think construction companies can get a bad rap in that route. But I mean, I've been in construction my whole career. I've always had a soft spot for it, and I want to say thank you on a couple things. One, for being a customer, but more importantly, for what you guys do. You build places where we can break bread with our friends, raise our families, go to school, and without construction industry, I mean, you're just an absolute critical part of what we need in this country. And I thank you for that. Thank you for your time today. Yeah. Thank you, Reid. I really appreciate your time, and likewise, look forward to the next discussion.
Nice to meet Reid.
It's a very honorable career. So
thanks. All righty. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you for joining us during this conversation series. Get more business insights from Sage Advice and learn more about Sage Construction Solutions at sagecre.com. Until next time.